And Rogue will always play minions of that size in order to swing into. Almost always.
Yeah, they pretty much have to. Like, obviously we saw the kind of hand from Lambie series that can be good in this matchup, where you go for the pure Alexstrasza burn plan, deal a whole bunch of damage at once. But honestly, this warrior gains so much armor, and it's you can't even avoid the kind of boards that are good into a Rancor. They are so often going to be gaining 10, maybe even 12 armor off of a single Rancor, and it's very, very difficult to play around. But High3, getting to see him on stream for the first time in a couple of weeks now, given that he's gone 0-2 2 weeks in a row, I believe. Excited to see our newcomer in action with Kazakus being kept on the mulligan. You love to see it, as it's one of the really most impactful cards in the early game, and one that Warrior can potentially struggle to deal with.
Yeah, and for Chonsu, I definitely like the Outriders Axe Keep. The Kargath is a bit interesting too, because I don't necessarily view that as a great card against Rogue, but it's just a curve, right? If you're planning to play the Outriders Axe, means you're going to coin out one of those 4 drops likely, and then you can follow up with the other. And it turns out he's just drawn into Shield Maiden. So once turn 3 rolls around, it can be very strong for Chonsu every turn going forward. Cult Neophyte on curve. Generally, I think breakpoints for warrior spells are tough to play around for High3, so this is mostly just a tempo play for him here.
Mankrik off the top as well. Okay, this is a straight up curve for High3. And Chonsu kind of has the hand that can deal with it, because he of course has Outrider's Axe into Kargath to be able to clean all this up. But he doesn't necessarily have the removal cards right now. If this is Divine Shield plus copy on the Kazakus Golem, you know, we could potentially be looking at a board that sticks. Maybe.
That's right. It's just interesting on the ordering of whether you want to go Kargath first or the Outrider's Axe. I was looking more heavily at the Kargath, honestly, because it sticks a minion on board. I don't think he was particularly worried about like the Cult Neophyte getting stepped there, because he had already used the coin. And then the Mankrik is also pretty threatening as a step target to put another 3/7 in the deck. And the 4/1's a bit relevant to make plays like Kazakus on curve a bit worse. So maybe you could have seen something a bit different from Chonsu, but there's still a lot to be said for getting card draw rolling as soon as possible.
You'd have to imagine that Divine Shield plus Draw 2 was the option that was picked by High3. I know that Draw 2 isn't premium, but honestly, just being able to guarantee that you are turbo drawing through your deck when you have Mankrik consumed by Hatred in there does feel pretty powerful. But the fact that we're seeing this play from High3 makes me think maybe he went for +2/+2, which is, you know, a questionable concept against Warrior. He did not get the good option, obviously, of summon a copy, but it's very, very difficult to stick any kind of a board to make a buff happen.
I mean, you can already see just how awkward the shape of the Kargath makes High3's life. Grand Finale is the pick for High3. Sure, it's just another big minion. Those have traditionally been good against Control Warrior. Yes, they're playing double coerce, but they're going to run out at some point, or at least if the Rogue has any shot of winning the matchup, they need to run out.
Well, High3 definitely not going to be running out of value anytime soon with Swindle and a whole bunch of small minions. So really, this game plan, I think, at the moment is dump everything onto the board and just pray that by some miracle it sticks. Assuming, of course, that he went for +2/+2. We can't see the Kazakus Golem options, unfortunately. But that's what this smells like.
And so for Chonsu, you'd have to assume first order of business is just keep drawing. I'm very likely sensing that we're going to see Shield Maiden at the end of that turn, because it doesn't really line up poorly against any golems. Even if it has Rush, that means it won't have Divine Shield, and so the Shield Maiden takes down 1 if it's copy. We're seeing Chonsu just not kill off the 1 Thief, instead valuing the weapon charge a little bit more, which I can also see being relevant. He does have enough stuff to get through Divine Shield copy, if that is the case, with the double coerces. And I guess 1 Thief is not the most threatening Shadow Step target.
Yeah, 1 Thief's okay. I'm wondering on this turn for High3 if, even just because 1 minion stuck on the board, you go for another 1-drop and greater Golem. The problem is, of course, that it's kind of difficult to actually deal with the Shield Maiden at the same time.
Just lines up a little bit too awkwardly, I think. So High3 gonna go digging.
Potion?
No hand space.
Yeah.
I guess for a little bit later, the other spells were just not good, so I can definitely see this being the play. I guess there's some argument for counterspell, but not at this position in the game, right? High3 just wants to get rid of the Shield Maiden.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also some merit, like being able to go Greater Golem, and if it sticks into Potion to get a 1-mana +2/+2 is very, very powerful. Like, there's some stuff going on with this hand. It's not easy to make it work at all, but it's coming together potentially, as he does go wide on the board on this turn, getting a lot of minions in play, but it is just child's play for Chonsu to clean this up.
Right. High3 going for the Og Merchant at the end there does make Blade Storm potentially a bit more awkward, because now there's two quote-unquote health and 1 health minions there, and also just spends his mana. But again, if this is the +2/+2 golem, then he's pretty sad about it. And also, it's not just Blade Storm. Rancor is always a pain for Rogue to have to deal with. Not to mention, Chonsu's just drawn his Kargath Prime and a 1-drop off the top to make sure he's a spend your mana gamer.
Yeah, I like as well that he's going for 1 extra card draw instead of 2 extra armor there, as the order could have been changed, because he has, like you said, Kargath Prime already. He's going to be gaining 1,000,000 armor this game. Just about making sure you have the brawls, you have the answers to clear off anything the Rogue can do.
I'm just impressed High3's drawn this much without a field contact.
True. That is true.
This definitely feels like next turn could be Grand Finale, and then you go for the Golem with a bunch of minions, but I don't know where the Potion of Illusion slots in there, because like you said, he really wants to be able to copy a high-value minion, not just like One Thief, Foxy Fraud. Yeah,
it's not quite good enough, is it? Like, the problem is as well that off One Thief, you don't even have the cheesy options of Pyroblast or Puzzle Box of Yogg-Saron anymore. There's very little insane outcomes that can just win the game on their own. Deep Freeze is about as good as it gets.
And so maybe he just plays the One Thief to have something to do with the rest of his mana, and then you can use Potion with the Golem, but I guess he's just going to get a little bit greedier with it, which I can also see the reasoning for, but man, does it feel bad to do this.
Yeah, I think the thought process is go for the Kazakus buff on the same turn that you play the minions. So holding back all these 0, 1, and 2 cost minions just to be buffed on the turn they're played. Again, you know, we know that Brawl, Blade Storm, Coerce, Shield Slam, all these removal options will make quick work of it. But maybe for High3, if by some miracle they're all at the bottom, he can stick a big enough board.
Carpet options were interesting for Chonsu. Blade Storm is definitely the most safe pick because he does already have 2 coerces. But I wonder if there was any merit for taking something a bit more proactive, because he does have that much removal. But he also just has good proactive stuff with the Troublemaker and Kargath. So Blade Storm definitely still fine here.
Well, it was a decent turn to get Kazakus, if he is, as I suspected, if he was setting up for this big buff turn. So let's see if he can get it to work.
Ruined Orb is great, more value, and also a bit of burn.
Foxy Brain Freeze.
That Penflinger back into the hand, and then the Golem can buff this board. You are pretty much expecting a brawl by this point. Oh, wow.
I was wrong. Interesting.
This is... like, there's only one card that really gives value that he's calling, which is the One Thief. The Foxy Fraud can give him fluidity a bit later on, but even if he gets field contact, he has enough cards to deal with it. So maybe this Golem is just not what we think it is.
Yeah, I mean, for all I know, it could be draw 2 or whatever the third option was. I can't even remember. I think it was like deal 3 twice or something like that.
And it does at least do a good job from High3's perspective of denying just Troublemaker. This is not the shape of board you want to play that into. So for Chonsu, relatively simple to go for Kargath Prime instead, and then set up for potentially a Blade Storm or just Troublemaker the next turn.
Alright, if it was the buff Golem, this literally has to be the turn you play it, right? You are never sticking more than 3 minions this game. Never.
Buff Penflinger? That's a pug. In terms of best ways to get rid of the Kargath Prime, So it's like Pen Flinger into the Golem, then trade Brain Freeze, if this is the +2/+2. I guess he played some other minions before that. Okay, he's not going to overextend into Brawl. That's smart, I think.
Is it? I feel like these minions are doing nothing. Like, what is a 1/1 Foxy Fraud and 1 Thief doing? I just wanted to get them down, so if they don't have it, you win. Because, I mean, if they brawl this, you lose anyway.
Not necessarily. After this 3-4 trades in, it's like a decent-ish board to brawl. And he is trading the higher health minion to play better around Bladestorm as well.
Fair.
This is the type of board state that Warrior does struggle with, to be fair. Obviously, it looks lackluster because it's come down so late, and Chonsu's on 31 health. But this is the type of board that Chonsu would rather coerce part of, at least, and then maybe High 3 gets a safer grand finale.
That's fair. That's fair, okay. I think for Chauncey, with the way this shapes out, though, you just go Axe, Shield Slam, Coerce. Like, I know you have to use 3 individual pieces of removal rather than getting a good Bladestorm, but it's just so clean.
Yep. Big fan. Starting with the Axe to see what's in the box as well. Nice to get usage out of Shield Slam because he also knows that this is the point in the game where his armor might be chipped away. Okay, Bladestorm Minefield instead is an alternate way of dealing with it. I was interested in getting the card draw, but maybe Chonsu is just trying to use these cards that are a little bit more difficult to maneuver because the single target removal is pretty premium, to be fair.
Yeah, just in case they get some kind of generation of a big minion, and obviously Alex, Jandice, things like that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of burn in hand now with double Wicked Stab. And with both Runedorb and Wand Thief, you know, if he can get double Fireball, sorry, the Runedorb will give Rogue Spell, so if he can get another Wicked Stab and then Fireball off the Wand Thief, then maybe we're talking, that is a lot of damage with a Shadow Step still in hand, Alex, Tenwu, all this nonsense. The burn damage is potentially there.
And that's why we see High 3 front-loading at least part of it. I do like this compared to playing down a smaller minion because that would just give Chonsu the card draw. Of course, the 8-8 High 3 almost never gets to see this stick, but wow, the Vol'jin is so premium as well because Chonsu potentially deletes a relevant battle cry. Not that one, but you'll take it.
Yeah, draw a card, gain some tempo. Very, very nice. Stage Dive is doing literally nothing, so
that's right.
You may as well just save it. Maybe you get Scorpied into Athletic Studies into another Kargath. It's just not doing anything here.
Or maybe the Rogue generates counterspell, something like that.
Sure.
It's just that he's not worried about hand space and he has mana spare, so might as well hold on to it. Finally, Field Contact comes down for High 3. Looking for Alex Tenwu at this point, you'd have to imagine.
I was kind of looking at Primordial Studies there, actually. I guess you can just go for a redo on the Wand Thief with this line.
But the hand space becomes a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it really does.
Give me that! Look what I was!
Vanessa gets him a Vol'jin. That's decent.
Are there any tricks you can do there, like Vol'jining Alex back to your hand? I don't think so. Something silly like that.
You can Vol'jin a Tenwu? I don't know.
yeah, there's something maybe.
You can Vol'jin a discounted Jandice. Okay, it's getting a little bit out there now. Okay. Next boost is some additional burn.
Yep.
Still worried about High 3's hand space. Looks like he's just dumping the secret passage so he doesn't overdraw.
I don't think he was overdrawing anyway. Oh no,
but he would want the Penflinger back in hand.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, very reasonable. It's not going to be doing much for the rest of this game.
And now for Chonsu, this looks like a very simple Troublemaker turn as long as he swings into the Field Contact to guarantee it dies.
It does, yeah. He's getting a little afraid. of taking all this damage. I don't think he's going to be afraid of dying yet, but it's definitely something to bear in mind. Bulwark can obviously stave off a lot of that pressure.
It's just about the fact that he is quite far from being able to... Okay. This line is probably just better, right? Because he doesn't have to tank 3.
Yeah.
And then the Troublemaker has no failure rate in the sense that minions get left on the board. Chonsu's health total, because he hasn't seen any discounts, he's not scared yet of like Alex coming down twice. He's also just seen 1 Wicked Stab, so I think he's able to hold off on the Bulwark at least 1 turn longer.
Yes. For sure. Awkward that you can't just play Vanessa as a battle cry and then throw down your own Troublemaker, but I guess even that would just be a little bit too unimpactful. This really does kind of demand a clear, actually, on the Troublemaker.
Yeah. Chonsu's threatening counter-lethal over 2 more turns if High 3 doesn't deal with this.
Efficient is sufficient.
First order of business is discounting the hand. That seems reasonable.
No one crosses the uncrowned.
A can get a 7-mana Troublemaker.
Not bad, I suppose.
Yeah. He can potion some of this.
Yeah, I mean, they're decent potion options. He can get himself another Troublemaker. Obviously, Efficient Octobot doesn't do anything because it can't proc the Frenzy. It's just a 1/1.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that it's chump change of a board, right? Chonsu,
I guess.
It's so easy for him to deal with this. Even if his 3/3s have to die in the process.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that top deck is illegal!
Very illegal. Yep. Trade 1/3/3 into Big Vanessa. Rancor. High 3 can get out of this game.
Oh.
Okay, he does have like double Troublemaker, but the thing is Chonsu's own Troublemaker is not dying, so High 3 doesn't have unlimited time to play these.
Yeah, he'd have to go like Troublemaker and then double Penflinger plus Wicked Stab the other one, and then there's still a bunch of 3/3s on the other side. I'm hard-pressed to find a lethal here, or an avenue to victory at all for High 3.
I don't see it either. Alex not being hit by the discount means that any burn game plan is unavailable, not to mention there's just the Bulwark equipped as well. Just not there.
Respect that he's staying in it, though, for so long, trying to find any chance to a victory. He's played it a little bit different to what the standard pan-out is, which is reasonable, of course, given that the standard pan-out does not win you the game in this matchup.
Right, he did have, like, many opportunities to use a sooner Golem, but on less minions. I wonder if that path could have been explored, but more so than that, it was like Chonsu having perfect understanding of what to keep in the matchup. The Outrider's Axe is so strong, and the early Kargath into Kargath Prime made it such that High 3 was never really able to get a foothold onto the board until that Golem turn, and then it was so easy for Chonsu to pick up hard.
Literally just missing both the hits, meaning that Chonsu is 1 damage off lethal here. Honestly, that may have just been good for High 3 to get that, because he's never winning if the Bulwark isn't destroyed anyway.
So funny. Chonsu set up the 2-turn lethal, go face with the Bulwark, and then High 3 has to attack Chonsu to delete the weapon. That's so dumb.
That is very dumb.
Rattlegore? VT Penflinger?
I think so. I think the runway is clear. Just go for it.
He can VT the 1/3/2 if he cares enough about it. It's just that the Rattlegore never gets dealt with, right? He knows there is one more generated spell, but it's a rogue spell, not a mage spell, so no chance of devolving missiles.
Yes,
not even gonna respect the flinger, sure.
With Sap no longer even in standard, you can't even hope for that as an out. Jandice, we are looking for a miracle here. One more time.
Taunts? 2 taunts? No, 2 coerce in hand.
Yuck. I think that's Vectus, which is not a miracle. So we Tenwu.
Coaster.
Yeah, go again. Mm-hmm. This
Gotta trade something first to make room also.
Step Vectus doesn't do anything right because there's no Death Rattle. Step Coaster doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Let's see what you've got.
It'd be funny if Chonsu got the Vectus and then a billion Rattle Gores on the...
That would be hilarious.
Yep.
How would that even work with the text? Would it summon a 3/3 Vectus then? Or a 0/0 egg? I don't even know.
I have no idea. More
that would be hilarious. Yeah, exactly. I think Hydra here, even just going for one minion, right? Oh wait, he can go for a Penflinger line to kill his own guy. Okay, this is all very, very cute, and it's a nice optimization by Hydra to give him some miracle out. But obviously, it's in the forest-flung depths of desperation.
Yeah, Chonsu just watching with a little bit of impatience, you'd have to imagine, because he does have Shield Slam, double Cores, double Blade Storm, and Barrel. Even if that Jandice produced 6 taunts for the total time she was played, Chonsu had all the answers there. Just a clinic on how to play the matchup, and it's no surprise that this matchup is... Oh my gosh, I got frozen in a bad position this time. No surprise that the matchup is so heavily favored for the Warrior.
Indeed, yeah. And it's why the deck is brought, right, overall. It's just absolutely absurdly powerful in the matchup. I was kind of at first of the opinion that maybe Control Warrior isn't quite so good against Rogue. I had a couple of good experiences against Warrior on ladder. But again, after having played it a little bit more, you just realize it is very, very difficult for the Rogue to win indeed. So we do need the counter Q now from High3 in the form of either the Priest or his own Rush Warrior, as opposed to the Control Warrior. And I do think the Priest is absolutely the way to go. This matchup, from what we have done in testing, just feels apocalyptically bad for the Warrior. It's so difficult for them to stick anything against all the Priest's removal. And even if you use all your removal in the Control Warrior's arsenal, you're still not even going to come close to dealing with all the value that Priest can generate if they play super greedily.
I wouldn't put it quite so apocalyptically bad. It's like 2021 level bad. It's not the apocalypse, but it's a pretty bad year. Because they do have Rattlegore, right? And this particular build with the Vol'jin and the Venomous Scorpid, there is a way to cheat out a lot of pressure.
Sure.
And then the Priest still has to generate something to deal with the Rattlegore. It's not in the basic deck. There's many ways to generate it off of Sethix/Palm Reading. So, and it being either Focused Will to silence the Rattlegore and then you just Shadow Word Death it, or Psyche Split to copy the Rattlegore, or Initiation to copy it in a bit more of a difficult roundabout manner. But yes, there are definitely ways for Priest to deal with that one checkpoint. Other than that, though, every minion is very easy to deal with, and that's why I do agree that the Priest is favored in the matchup.
Yeah, I will say that even though there's a couple of things working in High3's favor, as we obviously saw South Sea Scoundrel there, which can be nice to further the fatigue of your opponent and pick up some extra value, maybe a Rattlegore, who knows. And of course the Onyx Mage Scribes for extra value. There was no Sethix in the list, which is a big, big deal. Sethic Veilweaver is one of your premier ways to generate huge amounts of value versus Warrior. Effectively, you can just generate infinite value with Raised Dead Sethix, Raised Deading them again off the Raised Deads you get from Sethix. But that's not a possibility. So High3's deck is working a little bit more with just what's in there. Obviously, there's still a fair amount of card generation, but not quite to the same absurd degree.
Yeah, I completely missed on that. Without Sethic, it's harder to get to those answers to Rattlegore, and I absolutely think Chonsu will be keeping that card.
Yeah.
Scorpid to go alongside it. Okay, that's the wrong 5-drop. I got so excited there, Daryl.
That would have been sick. Yeah, obviously cheating out your own Rattlegore with Vol'jin early on is game plans A through Y with this deck. Z hoping for lightning to strike your opponent, I guess.
Oh, man. Not just an internet disconnect? Lightning striking your opponent. Okay, Dark.
I'm here to win, Gia.
But we did talk about how there is still a decent amount of card generation from High3. We already see this Wand Maker, which can get you Renew into more card generation, and of course Palm Reading. But I think it is totally fine for High3 to start with Draconic Studies, because he can also just turbo out the first dragon if there is no Scorpid. But we do see from Chonsu a way to fight back.
Yeah. Barricade, not a bad outcome, just a bit of extra apologies there, a bit of extra minion development to fight back and try and just go for some kind of an early aggression game plan, because to be fair to him, he does have, aside from Vol'jin, the most tempo heavy hand I think you can have. He can go 4-5 something, coin 8 or coin Rattlegore. There's a lot going on here.
And the way that High3's Priest is built, because he's running these greedy cards like the Scoundrel and the double Mage Scribe, he's not only cut Sethek, he's also cut the Holy Smites, which means that these Scorpids are actually pretty problematic to deal with. Outrider's Axe gives him a way to deal with it, but it also just gives Chonsu an Axe. And High3's probably just okay with that in general, because if the Warrior's drawing, as long as you can keep parity with the draw, Priest should generally still just be in the lead.
Yeah, 100%. I like the option of going for the Outrider's Axe there. The other two, like, obviously Shield Slam does nothing for you, basically. And giving them another Troublemaker is just the one way that you potentially lose.
Instead, High3 has double Psychic Conjurer, which I feel is a really weird inclusion over Sethek /
Right.
But, I mean, High3 has clearly built this deck for a matchup that we don't normally have in mind. It's maybe in line with the theory that if you are having Priest in your lineup and it's being left up, then you should be building it to beat decks that Priest would be weak against. I'm not necessarily sure if that means an opposing Priest, though, which I feel is the only use for Psychic Conjurer.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I don't really see the power of this card. Like, we saw it as a tech in Specialist Week from, like, Glory, I think it was, where you just tech it in for the Priest Mirror specifically, but it wasn't even very good then. But
Scoundrel definitely is, but you would rather have a Sethek. I will explain what I owed at the Focused Will. That's the check to Rattlegore. Chonsu's A through Y game plans are almost entirely deleted now. In fact, they are entirely deleted, because I was going to say High3 still lacks a Shadow Word Death, but he just has Barov with Condemn.
Yeah, true.
That's a strong combo too.
Yeah, as long as this Focused Will is not played, in which case I will be staring angrily at High3 through the monitor. He should have this game looking very, very good for him now. That's the one check you have to pass, is an answer to Rattlegore.
Other than Rattlegore, there's still ways to get pressure with Troublemaker, and Priest generally can deal with that easily. But again, there's no natural Shadow Word Death for High3, no natural Soul Mirror as well. He's just got all these weird cards that I don't really like. The double Desperate Prayer, I'm not a huge fan of as well. Like, one of them, okay, if you're running Xyrella, I don't hate it. But it honestly feels like this Priest has half of the techs that are good against Mage, the 2 Prayers and the 2 Mage Scribe. But it also has Scoundrel and Ooze, which are like techs for other matchups. It just feels unfocused.
Yeah, I mean, any game plan or any Priest build that doesn't involve going to Xerios' chat, typing !Priest, and copying whatever you get off of that, I'm not a fan of, because I think he's just going to have the best build of Priest, assuming he's not going for some kind of a meme build at that point. But agreed, there's a reason that the standard build is the standard build. Like we were saying, you know, if you're going to bring Priest, you do want to tech it specifically for what it's going to be countered by in this metagame, which is why Desperate Prayers, I can understand, you know, because against Mage, you do want to have a lot of extra healing in order to fight back against all their ridiculous burst damage. But the lack of Setheks, I just can't get behind. It's one of the best cards in the deck, in my opinion.
I honestly thought that card would get nerfed before Lucia a second time.
Yeah.
Well, from High3's perspective, this looks like a pretty juicy Condemn. He doesn't have to save it to go along with Barov, although it's also a good opportunity to keep drawing with the Outrider's Axe. Oh, and he can ooze away Chonsu's Axe. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's all just pretty good for High3 again, just making sure he's not falling behind, and we are all Gucci for the rest of this game. And I think even for Chonsu, he's probably unlikely to coin Troublemaker, because without the follow-up, You'd rather just get Rattlegore down. It's the one important minion. And, you know, while we've talked about in practice testing the possibility of not playing Rattlegore for the entire matchup, because then it doesn't give your opponent the possibility to initiation it, or to Psych Split, or to Soul Mirror to get a copy of their own. I think if you don't have Cthulhu, that's just not even a possibility. You have to play the Rattlegore and just pray they don't have an answer.
That's right. Don't mind High 3 going for palm reading instead there, because if it was just an Ooze turn, the rest of the turn would be just renew. Maybe not the greatest use of palm reading overall. Information, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's the only one that does anything useful in the matchup, so we're going to take it.
That's right.
I don't know, maybe if you can get Tyrion, or what are the big taunts even left in the game now? None that instantly win the game. Sleepy Dragon? It's not that big.
Rush weapon to Ooze. High 3 to keep drawing. Honestly, his only problem is that he has not enough hand space to do everything he wants to do. I didn't think it was to the point where you just leave the Mage Scribe and not get value. I thought he would maybe like play one Maker.
Right.
And something like that, because you might still need this value a little bit later on.
I agree. But I guess at the very least, if you're expecting coin Rattlegore, it's very likely to survive, would be the thought process. Or at the very least, it disrupts the turn. You know, if you have to sacrifice 2 cards in order to stop Rattlegore for a turn, still don't think it really makes a difference, because you just instantly have the answer to Rattlegore, of course. But, yeah, just trying to get into his head as to why you'd go that way.
Once you're going to go ahead and coerce this at the end of the turn, you'd have to imagine.
Okay.
You never see Ring Matron outside of Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
I did not know this was a standard card.
I had that with a couple of Battlegrounds cards where I just have to think back, like, was that ever in the game? I feel like it was, but then usually they're just not.
Interesting pickup for High 3. I don't feel that the Elucia is especially earmarked for any point of the game. He might just not play it at all, unless he wants to do something like the bouncy Sarah back into your own hand play. But it's a bit difficult to maneuver without any discounts.
Oh, look at that tempo. That's why you put Psychic Conjurers in your deck.
Well, here it is.
Oh, man. Yeah, there it is. The one ray of hope for Warrior in the matchup, instantly silenced away.
Oh, and a Mage Scribe to immediately play alongside the Focus Will as well.
Sounds great.
And Germana. High 3 immediately sits up in his chair. He knows that he's well in the driver's seat.
I must consider.
Yeah, I guess the only consideration is how do you actually kill the Rattlegore? It is going to have a whole bunch of health, and if you go Mage Scribe, Focus Will, and then Barov, then you're obviously effectively killing your own Mage Scribe at the same time, which doesn't feel great.
I mean, even if he has to tank this 9, I really don't care about that. Just trading 2 minions, Holy Smite, actually trade the entire board and Holy Smite, I think is not bad at all. He would maybe take 1 swing and then keep the 3-4 around. But then he also has to just, I guess, dump the Gift of Luminance at the end of that turn to not overdraw. Okay, so he's just gonna order it like this. So he fits in the heal. I was kind of more of a fan of taking the draw and then using Luminance.
Just to not dump a card, yeah. I mean, either way, I think we can agree it's not going to have all too much impact.
Yeah.
I guess he has the answers to like the Troublemaker, which would be the next thing. That is the benefit of saving Barov, of course, is that he, no matter what happens, no matter what was generated by information, I still think he's just got the game pretty much on the lock.
Ansu's best hope is the Troublemaker, and he can use it and coin out Coerce for the 4-9. But it looks like he is going to hold on altogether. Weaving in Hero Powers. I'm not sure what this does. From Chonsu's perspective, I feel like his 0.01% outer here is if the Troublemaker doesn't get answered, and he did just see quite a lot of resources into the Rattlegore.
Yeah, literally just dumping value, jettisoning it off the ship just to make room for his other value that he's trying to use in this game. Oh, and Shield Maiden, perfect. That's a minion that you can just play, make it harder for your opponent. Chonsu, he's just going to die to fatigue this game. If not the inordinate amounts of pressure that High3 can throw down.
You're in my school now!
Okay. Troublemaker 3/3 is likely to get some value trades. Not technically dead on board is the Troublemaker, but the second Condemn is going to make quick work of that. Also, a Zyrella play available for High3 if he wants it.
Oh, I mean, you got a bunch of plays. Like, obviously, I want to get rid of hand space as quick as possible so that you can go Mage Scribe, Gift of Luminance, just to keep the value train rolling even faster. So maybe you're right. It's just renew Zyrella.
You can't do that right now, right? You can go. Although it would gift the Shield Maiden instead of the Onyx Mage Scribe.
Oh, okay, okay.
In order to VT the 6/8 and then Condemn deals with the rest of the board.
I mean, that's not bad. I don't hate that idea.
There's many ways to go about it. I don't hate starting with Renew either, because just Zyrella and then trade the 1/1 after the hero power comes down is also very powerful. He can end with Scorpid or Rally.
Great. This will get the job done too. Chonsu, I can respect that he's going on as long as possible. Taking a look, I suppose, at what cards he has left, we can see if there's any ray of hope in this list. Vol'jin, I mean, there's no real key cards to pull out from your opponent's deck. Kargath to get Kargath Prime is obviously nice against aggro decks, but is nowhere near high value enough to win the game. And the second Troublemaker, I just don't see it.
Yeah, the only real way for Warrior to win this matchup, if not Rattlegore, is to run Cthulhu in the Warrior, which obviously weakens a lot of Warriors' other matchups, like versus Token Druid and Miracle Rogue, because you're not consistently getting to your removal with those extra pieces in the deck. So I don't fault Chonsu whatsoever for playing it out here and having the Warrior built this way. I think this is the optimal build for this meta. There's just not very much he can do in this specific matchup, and it often feels that way in LHS. Very polarized matchups often dictate the way that the meta plays out. Oh, Protodrake.
Oh, yeah, don't pick Malygos and you're all good. That's the one stipulation of this game.
Okay, holding on to one for Bulwark, I guess. Not that the Bulwark matters in this matchup.
I love how our one addendum to our regular casting routine is just to stick "I guess" onto the end of every statement, because nothing matters from here on in for High3. As long as he doesn't just throw, he's all good here. Like, you could have thrown down Gift of Luminance there. I think that would have been fine. But you can also just save it, I guess, and go for it on Onyx Mage Scribe. That's also fine.
Vol'jin can make him worry about the Protodrake a turn later, I suppose. If he pulls the Mage Scribe, that's kind of good for Chonsu. He can immediately coerce it. But again, it's just an I guess it's good for him.
Yep.
Ding, ding, ding. Oh, please Vol'jin that, so High3 can uproot it.
That would be sick. That would be the perfect way to end this game. Or, well, to enter the mid-stage of this game, I will say, the way it's currently looking.
Will he ever have the hand space to do the gift thing? I just wish that High3 could. But there's absolutely no reason for him to rush here. Speaking about High3 as a player, in terms of our newcomers for Grandmasters, I think it's fair to say, like, alongside Lambie, they haven't been performing up to the standards we might expect because High3 has been a very, very consistent Masters Tour player. And I think he really, really puts a lot of work into the game and he cares about it a lot. He does have a Twitter, I think relatively new, and he tweets in English for everybody's convenience, at least on our English-speaking side of the Twitter sphere. And I think that's considerate of him. He has a lot of humor as well when it comes to some of how his games play out. And you can see that when he did take those losses in the first couple of weeks, it was quite a blow to his confidence. So I'm really happy that he's able to get back on stream and play, I think, a very clean game of Priest so far, although this is, quite frankly, not the hardest of matchups. Later on, though, we'll get to see him on some other decks.
Yeah, exactly. When we see the counter queue, most likely from Chonsu on the Mage. But you're right. I am glad we're getting to see a bit of High3's mojo back. He is a player who is kind of suffering from one of the unfortunate side effects of this new system of Grandmasters, which for the most part, I think the individual weekly tournaments make for much more exciting gameplay. We get a very excited winner each week. But if you lose both your matches, you're not going to be going on stream. And so High3, unfortunately, hasn't had the airtime to express that personality that we wish we could get a closer look at. But here with the Priest, I mean, again, even though we disagree with the build of it, I'm sure if we questioned him about it, he could have many, many reasons to give us as for the way he built it. Because I will say at least that against Warrior so far, the lack of Sethx is not looking even close to mattering.
Right. Palm readings, wand makers, and to an extent, the Psychic Conjurers give him stuff to do. The Mage Scribes that he's running also somewhat fill the void of value that he might have lost from not including Sethx. In terms of what Chonsu can do here, it is really easy to just math this out if you can take a look at all the remaining cards in hand and in deck. For every threat that Chonsu can put forth, High3 has an equal or greater answer. And so it really just comes down to who has more cards at the end of that after you cancel all those out. And it is High3 by a country mile.
A pretty cute play here, I suppose, by Chonsu to get a double activation of Barrow, clear the board. He is in the lead now for the first time in a very, very long while. And now he's not. That was quick.
Who'd have thought? Ray's Deadpool does include quite a few whiffs now for High3, just all the tokens that are generated plus the oozes. But other than that, it is premium minions, things that generate more cards, things that put him even farther ahead on the long-term value. Chonsu doing everything he can here to maybe stick a board, but it feels like he's getting a bit sleepy himself.
I don't think I've ever seen the golden animation for Ring Matron, and it is just objectively hilarious. A static, unanimated demon just leaping through the fire.
I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even...
I was not okay with Mage Scribe being played for 0 value. Right now, I am very okay with it.
Yeah.
In fact, I just want to see it so High3 can create some hand space so he can play the other Mage Scribe with the Gift of Luminance.
I mean, Ysera doesn't even give Dream here, right? It only gives Nightmare. So you can't even bounce it back to hand if you wanted to. Yeah, I mean, the thing to bear in mind is you don't have to clear this minion. You can just develop your own stuff and then follow up later on with clearing whatever may need to be cleared.
Magic is not a toy. Do not lose this.
Sure, there you go.
He generated a good card to dump as well. Even the wave was pretty good. Okay. I mean, even if he dumps Condemn, he's totally fine as well. There's still like one more troublemaker in the deck, but he has a gazillion other ways to deal with it.
Yeah, he does. It could look a little bit scary, I suppose, but if you can find a way to dump Ysera early, you can just go Ysera Awakens plus the Condemn as well. We'll very, very happily deal with it. But Chonsu does, for the moment at least, have board control, kind of punishing High3's very liberal use of Shadow and Ruin, and Hysteria as well, for that matter. So it's for High 3 just going to be what? Straight up Ysera for 1 card? Literally just the Nightmare? Okay.
Has to just get it on board. This all feels like he only wanted the Nightmare to go with Samuro potentially, in case Apo buff isn't enough for something as big as Troublemaker. But Chonsu is going to end the game, and this was no surprise at all once we saw the focus well come down on the Rattlegore. But long fought for High 3. He's looking at least a little bit relieved, but now the series truly begins, Dar.
That's right, yeah. The win goes either way with the expected decks, and I feel like we've got the closest to a 50-50 now if we see the Mage come down from Chonsu. We definitely expect it as the main weight he's got to counteract Priest. It's kind of funny as the time he conceded, because I was just about to say, is it possible he actually has any way back in? Because he would have shuffled Kargath Prime back into his deck. Like, he was losing, of course, but High 3 had been very, very liberal with his removal options. Ysera as well had just gone down. I don't know, it was still like fringe outs for Chonsu to have any chance there. Just felt interesting as a time to concede there. But either way, it is going to be High 3 taking the win, going on and having another shot with the Priest.
Yep, and if Chonsu's previous Q order choices are to be expected, yeah, no surprises here. He is going to run the Mage into the Priest. I will say the build of Priest from High 3, while I called it unfocused, like half of the un-auto-include cards, like the Mage Scribes and the Desperate Prayers, are good against Mage. It's just the Conjurers and the Ooze, and particularly the lack of Sethic, that I think will really hurt this matchup for High 3, because I find that without Sethic, you don't really have the ability to build boards that force Mage to take a turn of removal. Maybe you can even force out an early devolving missiles, which then makes your Mage Scribe a bit safer, and if that's safe, then Mask of Cthulhu is not as strong.
Yeah, it does feel like one of the things that you very often fall into when you're building these decks like Control Priest that have so many different ways that you can tech it, that you try and make a Swiss Army knife that's good against everything, but then in the end you inevitably just kind of make it okay against everything, whereas it's often better to make your deck a well-targeted arrow to just pierce the armor of one particular deck that your opponent may be bringing. But Chonsu does have, for the most part, a pretty standard build of the deck. One Shooting Star over one Ring Toss could definitely hurt him in the matchup, but even having said that, you know, Shooting Star is not useless, even if it's Control Priest. They have a bunch of early game minions, Ooze, One Maker, Conjurers, that you can just use to clear off. Even the Scorpid, if you have a bit of spell damage, you can use to clear it off as well. And for the most part, it's just a matchup that, whether or not you stand by it being super favored for Mage, Chonsu clearly does, because otherwise his entire strategy just leaves himself super vulnerable to Priest.
I do stand by it being favored, maybe not super, but I think it's definitely favored, especially against the list from High 3 that is kind of unfocused in its build. The build of Priest that I find is possibly even favored against Mage is the one that includes Sethic on top of those Onyx Mage Scribes, and then the Desperate Prayers as well, to make sure that there's tons of healing. Although we did see yesterday that when Chonsu did face off against, was it Tom's Priest, there was so much healing for Tom generated, but the Mage can just get over the line with their persistent value generation off of minions from Font of Power, from Primordial Studies, and additional burn generated from Ruined Orb. The thing is, it's very hard to do that all fluidly when you don't hit Encanter's Flow. And so for Mage, it's not often about how much total damage you can generate throughout the game. It's just how much damage you can put through in that window where Priest is not able to get all their healing through.
Very true. Very, very true. It's kind of akin to Token Druid, where you don't want to have a bunch of small threats. You want to have one big threat. You don't want a bunch of chip damage. You want one big burst. But Chonsu, here we go, getting into the game, has got himself a bit of a whiff in terms of his starting hand, to be perfectly honest. No card draw to go with this. Primordial Studies, Ruined Orb, it can dig him out, but unless he finds, I guess, exactly card draw / Incantus Flow off of it, things are looking a little rough.
Yeah. Even this choice to start with the Studies instead of Ping is a bit interesting here. It does mean such that if Chonsu picks up a 2-cost minion, that he can play it alongside Ruined Orb the next turn. which he couldn't have done if he goes for the ping. And 2 cost is the most common breakpoint for the spell damage minions. It also means if he got Thalnos, he could draw immediately. But Chonsu's diverting already, seeing that he did not get any card draw. He's going for value with the Aegwin, but the downside of that is that it makes top decks such as Cram Session pretty hard to maneuver.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big downside, right? His hand is looking really slow by comparison. This is a tough choice, though, right? Because Fireball is premium in the matchup, but his hand was just really awkward unless he had another mana to work with.
Right. I do like the Primordial Studies pick here. He's just looking for a way to draw with the Cram Session as soon as possible. Although having seen the Scorpid, I'm pretty sure next turn will be Aegwin Shooting Star instead. As for High 3, the Raise Dead can keep his value going.
I mean, High 3 is just hitting the absolute nuts. Like, he is spending all of his mana. He has plenty of ways to recoup all these minions with Raise Dead. Could have gone for another one or a rally. But he's just going with buffs to get the damage in.
Yeah. So Chonsu starting with Primordial here. He can still go Aegwin Shooting Star at the end of it. Probably Mini Mage for this pick, because I think this turn is going to be Aegwin clear, then you expect your Aegwin to die, and then you kind of just want to draw with Cram Session. Oh, wow.
He could have gone Mini Mage Lab Partner Cram Session on this turn, right? Because he had a triple discount on the Mini Mage.
He could have, but I
considering?
think he was just potentially trying to clear the board if he had done that, because leaving the Scorpid while drawing is not that great. What he's done here instead, though, is use Devolving Missiles very early in order to mess with High 3's Raise Dead pool. Unfortunately, misses on the Conjurer, though, so there's really only one bad minion in the pool at the moment.
And High 3, you'd have to imagine, is just going to keep on spending his mana. I wouldn't even have been surprised to see just Powered Feast there as well.
Well, for Chonsu, waiting with the Aegwin is definitely still strong here, because he can get the 3 draws off Cram Session and with Shooting Star if he needs to, or he can just get 4 draws with Lab Partner. I'd be more interested in clearing the board to protect Aegwin. Yep.
Agreed. Incantus Flow found, now double Fireball. Okay, things starting to come together here, potentially. We also have to bear in mind the synergy between Aegwin and Astromancer Solarian, because when Aegwin dies, the minions don't have to be in your deck to get the Death Rattle effect. It's just the next one you draw. So Solarian Prime, very likely to have +3 spell damage. So that could be a very strong finisher later on in the game.
It could be. High 3 actually has to spend a huge resource here to get rid of the Aegwin this turn. He's not naturally running Shadow Word Death in the list, so I think it was very valuable for Chonsu to stick Aegwin on an empty board. Now means High 3 doesn't automatically have access to Samuro Apotheosis. He can still potentially get it from Raise Dead if Chonsu does not devolve this, but it kind of feels like he's going to devolve this.
It's a pretty premium devolve target. Otherwise, it's really difficult to stick anything. I mean, you could start with just like Lab Partner. I was going to say Runedorp Face, but I was kind of interested in going for the other way around. But he's just saying, get it in play now, and don't even bother going for the Devolving Missiles, which is interesting.
This is his second missile, so he'll obviously want to have that earmark for Mage Scribe. So he's just kind of softening up the Samuro here, but it honestly feels so awkward to do the Solarian this early. It makes the Font of Powers really bad top decks from this point onward, and it makes a Pexis Blast a lot weaker.
Does wow. Oh, I'm looking at Incantus Flow. Isn't that insane in Priest?
Yeah, obviously. Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
It was never Lunas either, I was just memeing, but I kind of thought that the Incanters was very, very good.
Yeah, that looked insane to me. Okay. Either way, High 3 now does give himself the ability to clear the board, still sets up for an insane Flame Strike, which, I don't know, is kind of why I wanted to see maybe him not attack into the Solarian, because it does lead up to a very, very clear and kind of telestrated play. Like, you knew they were setting up for a Flame Strike here.
I guess not 100%. Although the funny
100%.
thing is, because High 3 silenced the Solarian Prime, Chonsu gets full value of the Font of Power, and I think he's still in a pretty good spot. It could be High 3 who runs out of value from this point, honestly.
Interesting. Now it's time for the missiles. Whoa! Guff is insane, right? Oh no, wait, it's a nature spell, not any spell. Oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, Chonsu can just kill these with combustion. I think you're pretty happy to... Are you happy to put Guff in the raise that pool? Yeah, it's nature spells. It's kind of useless for people. I think Chonsu might just be looking over the deck list. Is there anything that's nature that I'm not sure is nature?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, it says explode!
Okay. Gonna brain freeze it instead, get some board presence. This is his last spell damage minion, especially after having seen both of the primordial studies, so that's something to note, that Chonsu's card draw and reach might be a bit limited from this point on.
Ooh. Interesting options. I'm pretty interested in that Malagos. I've got to say, drawing all the rest of the cards in my deck is going to be giving you, plenty more healing that you're going to need, because with double flow already played, there's going to be an onslaught of damage.
All things considered, a pretty good conjurer for High 3, and you're right, the pickup of Malagos means that High 3's worries about value are all completely alleviated, and it's Chonsu who is very far from being able to do anything significant. Of course, he can push 9 with the Massive Cthulhu and Ping this turn.
And it was a tough play. I was kind of interested in the Mask of Cthulhu, I've got to be honest. I know that a big dragon is coming down. Oh, well, sorry, you're expecting a big dragon, and I know that he has devolving missiles. But even then, it's still likely going to be a pretty big minion that's going to be tough to chew through with all this damage. It's a close one.
I don't think Chonsu can get there anymore, given that High 3's just drawn all of this stuff. To the point where he is willing to dump a heal spell, a premium heal spell against Mage.
And so if you're not getting there, is it ever Deck of Lunacy after double Incantus Flow? I know it's bad.
I mean, he's just put more power on High 3 side of the board. I mean, you can deal with it with, like, combustion, and sometimes Mask kills it, or at worst you can trade it down. But it's essentially healing High 3 for at least 5 HP here. Yikes.
Big yikes.
Okay, Chonsu, after having seen the Malagos draw all of these spells, kind of knows that he's not getting there based on purely burn, because a lot of these spells will be healing, but he can never get there on board. And the Lunacy is just... I don't know if it's even good at this point. Like, the 8-drop whiffs, there's like very few of them at this point.
Yeah. I mean, really what we're looking for at this point is some kind of a massive, as you were talking about, swing turn where you deal a whole bunch of damage in one turn, where they can't go for the big heal. If you can generate Phoenix and go double Phoenix, Phoenix, double Rune, Phoenix, double Apexis Blast, maybe a Rune Orb in there as well, but he's actually used both Rune Orbs already, so the amount of burst damage he has is actually kind of low.
It's just not there. He's used both studies as well, so really the only way to get spell damage at this point is the other Font of Power, and that's so... It's not very likely to get that from the Mage pool. Anything is a win here for High 3, it feels like. I mean, he's just able to combust this Occult Conjurer. He can also steal it, but I'm interested in maybe fitting in the Hero Power as the one way he might lose. But then again, this puts a minion on board, so Apo targets are better, potentially.
Right, like his healing is somewhat dependent on getting a minion in play. I'm not even necessarily sure that that means you should have gone for the initiation there, because maybe it was better just to go for another palm readings and cheapen your hand even further. But either way, Apexis Blast is a good card to find. Honestly, I'm interested in just going Flame Strike here to clear off the board.
Yeah, I like it as well.
Rather than pointing it at a minion.
Hirabashi can be pinged to go up to 5 attack.
We're going old school.
Gubarashi? All right, Mage Scribe comes down. High3 has seen both devolving missiles. This 6-9 is so hard to get through. He's also seen one Brain Freeze. He's seen, I guess, a generated combustion. It's not impossible for Chonsu to clear without burn, but Chonsu's only on 3 cards in hand. So the Mage Scribe, even if he preloads Apotheosis onto it, I don't think it's bad. Looks like he might be going for a Hysteria play to immediately get rid of the Goober.
Yeah, he didn't quite have mana to go Apo plus Hysteria on this turn, thanks to the nerf that made it 1 mana too expensive. But no matter what, it's still just, I think, going to be winning. A rally here. Maybe it's Ruin even, just to make sure nothing can stick.
The Ruin feels a bit redundant with the other Hysteria in hand, so I am a fan of the rally, First Instinct. Chonsu has not hit a lot of card draw this game. The other Cram Session, 2 AIs, and the other Spring Water are all in the bottom 10, which is obviously not great for him, but the burn is kind of getting there because, again, it's all dependent on Chonsu sticking a minion if he's able to heal.
It's kind of getting there, isn't it? If, like, it's Font of Power into Lab Partner and High3 forgets to heal, we've got a game on our hands.
And it's not like he'll forget to heal. He could just be thinking, oh no, the only minion I can play that has a lot of health is Ysera. So he might have just said, if you don't have the Fireballs plus spell damage here, then I can stick a big minion and Apo it. But obviously, that is a little bit too risky. From High3's perspective, the Fireballs could be discounted cards. We see that they're not. Phoenix? Phoenix?
Okay, that's good.
But he can't deal with this board, unfortunately. So High3 is just going to heal for so much. Double Apo next turn.
If he goes Firebrand Fireball on the minion, even that doesn't clear.
And it's not like Chonsu can just pray there's no Apo because there's so many cards drawn for High3. And from the Malagos, he has to know that these are mostly spells in High3's hand. I just don't see a way out. Maybe it's just play all 3 minions here?
High3 just had too much stuff at the start. There was too many minions in play for Chonsu. He couldn't get any kind of a board presence stuck. And although you don't need minions in play to get lethal, it helps a lot against Priest, especially when they draw every heal spell in their deck.
It might be a bad enough situation where Chonsu does just go for Lunacy. If we look at his remaining cards, like Brain Freeze costs 0, Combustion costs 1, so that can go up into a Fireball. I don't know, I think it's that desperate.
Right, yeah, I mean, I'm not coming up with anything better.
I mean, Apo on both of these looks really strong.
Yeah, I think that would probably just win you the game if you were to go for that. This looks good too. You could get down the Mage Scribe for even more value if you needed that. Mage Secrets, yeah, that's not bad.
Zyrella can clear up the 3/5. Seen both fonts now, except for 1 minion, so I don't think there's a big reason to hold on to Zyrella. Yep, I like just maximum pressure here. He's seen Flame Strike as well. He's seen double devolving missiles. Chonsu just has nothing left.
Yeah, even the ring toss you're looking for, I guess. Doesn't even want to go for it, just the heal instead. Fair enough.
I don't blame High3 whatsoever. When you see a Phoenix, you always feel like you're kind of dying, even though he is so far from dying here.
Yeah.
I do think Chonsu has the Lunacy. His current deck just does not get there. It's very unlikely that the Lunacy ever gets there, but if he's to win this game, that has to generate, I guess, a gazillion Fireballs off of the 1-cost spells that were previously 3-cost spells left in his deck.
Yeah, it can get him Fireballs. Maybe it can get him Hysteria in order to actually clear this board. He knows as well as we do he's losing this game. So let's pray for a miracle.
He does get 3 draws next turn with a free cram session and the Phoenix waking up. The thing is, even if it is all fireballs, it's just not enough. Because i3 is healing back to full.
Even oops, all fireballs doesn't get there. Like, if they cost... What would they cost at that point? 1?
4 still, right?
Oh?
Oh, wait. It keeps
That's
the
not
original
exactly
cost. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
They cost 1. So if he gets double fireball and it's not counterspell, he has lethal, right? With the plus spell damage?
But he does have to test. I guess you can test with Force of Nature, because that's the out we were talking about, is he needs fireballs.
Yeah, I mean, no, he doesn't even have mana. It's just nothing happening.
Like an accident.
Hellfire, Glide, yeah.
Glide into fireballs? I guess there's nothing within that cost range anymore, because these were the potential fireballs, is the Glide and the Hellfire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, killing
Hi,
on his own.
Phoenix.
Own Phoenix dying. All hope dying.
You get burned.
That's pretty funny, though.
That is pretty funny. Another Hellfire that literally just kills him.
Hey, alive on board! Runic Carvings for Rush.
Alive on board, dead to shadow form. GG. Let's go next game. A valiant effort from Chonsu, but for Hi3, man, his deck just firing on all cylinders. The curve all the way throughout this game was just brutal.
It truly was. And Chonsu's opener, the flows came, like, not at the latest possible point, right? They were still decently early. Not ideal that they didn't discount the natural fireballs, but for me, the real kicker was Chonsu having to use both the devolving missiles super early, and he didn't necessarily have to, right? We saw his thought process is to use the first one just to deny a good raise dead pool from Hi3, but I'm not necessarily sure if that would have helped him in the long run. Perhaps Ego in a turn earlier would have been really tough to deal with, getting card draw a bit earlier. I don't know. It's truly the early game where the biggest decisions mattered, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a huge deal in terms of a victory for Mr. Hi3, with Priest 2-0 up now, potentially with a chance to just get the sweep. The real question is, can it stand up against the likes of N'Zoth Paladin? Obviously a very recent addition to the metagame, ever since N'Zoth was changed from 10 mana to 9 mana, which is a huge difference, it turns out. Everyone was kind of initially saying, it doesn't really change that much. It's the difference between 9 and 10 doesn't make much difference. Surprisingly does. One turn earlier, in terms of your pressure, really can ratchet up those lethals one turn earlier, which makes all the difference. But can it beat Priest is the question. It's very good against Control Warrior, another premier control deck at the moment, but things work a little bit differently against Priest.
Yeah, I don't really see this getting there. Priest, as we saw from Hi3 in both those games, has value for days. So many different ways to generate it. And this Paladin doesn't really have ways to disrupt the value from the Priest. Notably, they can also just play the one N'Zoth with this list. Whereas if Priest is potentially running N'Zoth, they can play a whole lot more. We don't necessarily see that from Hi3's list, unlike the Priest from Tom yesterday, which Chonsu banned out. I am getting it wrong. It's Chonsu's Priest that runs N'Zoth, so it's super greedy as well. And in terms of just that one big board that the N'Zoth can push, if the Priest has held on to a couple Hysterias, they're generally able to deal with that. If they can generate Soul Mirror, they're in a very, very good position as well. And not to mention, the Priest can just get ahead on board, maybe a bit tougher without the Sethix, but it's not as though this Paladin curves super consistently.
Well, let's see. Already for Chonsu, Northwatch Commander is one of the better cards to keep in the early game, or to find in the early game, if you can activate it. But if it means holding on to Reckoning in your starting hand, then, I don't know, maybe you just keep it as a 3-4, but that's secret. It's not going to be doing the job for me. I think you just want a much more higher impact start, because it's not just about aggroing down the Priest in the early game. It's about not losing board. Priest very often can just push you out of the game with all their early 1, 2, and 3 drops.
Start for Chunsu, I think we're looking for Knights of Anointment, looking for Murgle potentially, looking for First Day of School, and the Sword of the Fallen, because you never want to play out a secret for full mana cost and have it take up a slot in your hand. That is just not the way the deck is built to function, and now Chunsu has hit much better opening cards.
Yeah, got himself a nice start here. Obviously, Hand of Adul was a lot better here, but just drawing any kind of a card, you're definitely not going to turn your nose up at. But High 3, once again, he just has a better curve than his opponent. 1, 2, 3, palm readings, Hand of Adul. This is illegal.
He did generate the good card, but thankfully Chunsu did trade the 1/1 there, and he'll be the first to land Hand of Adul.
Okay, Wave of Apathy is at least a little bit of a whiff from High 3, because outside of that, this hand is just pure fire.
The secret is a bit scary for High 3 though.
True.
Not going palm readings that turn because of the threat of Oh My Yogg. Focused Will? Are you kidding?
That's insane. I mean, those were all insane. I was kind of tempted by the Plague instead, but yeah, this is just so disgusting to deny the Prime.
Why is it correct for Chunsu to trade off his Murgle into the poison? He won't do that, but it's like, it's correct here to deny the focus. High 3 Focus Will, even more iconic than Yarla and Celestial Alignment these days.
Wow, just slams it down straight away.
Didn't even test for Oh My Yogg, okay?
Yeah, like, obviously you don't want to start palm readings, but I kind of thought you might start with Coin just to test for it here. That was pretty speedy.
I think the order would have been Coin, you don't see Oh My Yogg, then you go Focused Will, and then you trade the Scorpid, and then you can palm reading after, so that the Scorpid takes a VT before the Galloping appears.
Sure, yeah, that's true.
Like, you miss a discount, but I think it's pretty fine.
I mean, honestly, I would kind of be okay with not taking a VT, leaving a 2/4 on board, and just going Coin. You see it doesn't go off. Wand Maker, palm readings, and then you get down the Focus Will. I think getting Wand Maker and reducing another spell was worth it, just to not take a VT with the Scorpid there.
Sure. It's all fine. Hey, Inspector is here in case you do draw the secrets. At least it didn't shuffle the broom.
Okay, Chunsu's got some juice in his hand. Hammer into Carousel Griffin is very, very nice. He's thoroughly entered the mid-game now, next turn. And this is where I think Priest could potentially struggle. Obviously, dealing with the early game is child's play to them. But it's whether or not they can deal with these 6/6s, 8/8s, Ysera afterwards. That is where things potentially can get a little scary.
For High 3, he's completely fine to not proc the 4/9 because there's actually very little ways for Paladin to kill this on that turn. He also didn't want to play the third spell to proc the Galloping Savior, and now he has like a very strong Condemned trade play. I guess he doesn't necessarily want to trade this because it will die to Reckoning, but as long as he gets the spells into hand first, it's not bad.
Right, and Samuro... Does Samuro proc if it triggers Reckoning? Like, if you go Samuro, Hand of Adul, and trade here, would it clear the board? I honestly don't know.
All these interaction questions.
Yeah.
Because
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it is quite good.
My blade seeks vengeance.
Oh, I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah. The one I do know is that if it's with Rokara, the Samuro proc happens before the Rokara buffs its attack.
He's going with the trade first, yeah. We're not going to find out in this instance, but this does, of course, give him a full board clear. It's like after an enemy deals 3 damage, so like it deals the 3 damage. Does that mean after it's that, so it resolves the fact that it survived? Very, very complicated. Hard to figure out.
But Chunsu just playing it out here. The speed of his play has increased quite a lot since we've entered the unfavored matchup, at least from his perspective. You can see him making very considered plays on the mage, even trying to eke out any small percent he had to win last game. But now it is plain simple that he is trying to be aggressive on this Paladin, knows he can't get there on the late game alone.
Xyrella, a huge pickup here, as long as you are... Oh, okay, doesn't even want to go for it on this turn. I guess you can just go Shadowed Ruin instead. That's fine. It develops a little bit less.
actively good for him.
Oh, that's a good card as well. Sick. Priest rules.
It is kind of good, isn't it?
Okay,
Hey, that's-
strictly better.
Something to do for Chonsu. Oh. Stealth Pala. And then he has Ysera the next turn. It's a curve.
More like a whisper,
Ish.
Warden.
It's something. It's something. Obviously, High 3 has his pick of the litter as to how you want to clear up this board. Zyrella obviously gets more minions in play, but it uses up a more potent board clear for later on. And with the Raised Dead, he's just found, sure, let's find other ways to develop the board. Save the Zyrella for when it's absolutely crucial, because with that, how it currently stands, Desperate Prayer and Renew, that could be like 13 damage of AoE, maybe even more with another Desperate Prayer. Although it probably is palm readings here instead.
And the nail in the coffin is that as soon as Chonsu slams this Ysera, High 3 can Illusia, put the Ysera back in his hand. Of course, he'll be dumping quite a few cards before that. Maybe it's not even good. He can just deal with the Ysera the normal way as well. Point is, Chonsu doesn't get there.
Yeah, he is not looking like he's going to get there. If we look at the value, like N'Zoth is still super, super powerful. It plays a Divine Shield. I don't know. I'm trying to be super generous if he gets the perfect top decks, but even then, just Zyrella, I think, more than happily answers that.
Corpet's just out of range of the hammer here as well.
That's pretty sick. I was going to have a go at High 3 for not going for not going for exactly the palm readings and then the renew to conserve more mana. But with this blind, he just gets to stick a Scorpid. It's so sick.
Bunch of resources used once more for Chonsu. He's gonna get a demon in the pool after this dormant thing dies.
Can High 3 or the Observer please move your mouse? We can't see what any of the cards on the right are saying.
Observer's just trying to tell us it doesn't matter, Derek. Sarah Dream.
Yeah.
And then High 3 has... Like, he doesn't even have to kill the Ysera immediately. The only thing he's worried about is, of course, like, the weapon pressure plus this Nightmare. If he wants, he can Nightmare the Homunculus and Hysteria.
That looks good too. Ooh, Soul Mirror.
Or just this.
Yeah, this will get the job done too. 13 AoE. Zyrella is such an illegal card.
The Soul Mirror gives him a backup plan to deal with N'Zoth because he has just used Zyrella this turn and now he just has a second mirror. I was potentially thinking using the other line so that with the Hysteria in order to... Oh, sorry, I'm being stupid. High 3 doesn't have Nightmare in his hand. I just never see classes other than Priest play.
Yeah. It's not right. That is a Priest card and it has been since the start of Hearthstone. Yeah, and as High 3 starts to figure out how he wants to deal with this particular board, you really start to appreciate how big of a deal this is for High 3. Obviously, looking after 0-2, 3 out of the 5 weeks so far. Things are looking very, very rough for him. So if he gets the win here, as we are definitely expecting him to do, it could be a huge turnaround for him. We've seen Lambie series who's very much in the relegation zone lose. We've seen Tom in the relegation zone lose yesterday. High 3 could be one of those few players right down at the bottom to achieve that miracle run to salvation.
That would be big news for him. Just widening that gap between himself and the likes of Tom and Lambie, as you said. Tyler not even in the conversation anymore because pretty much he is relegated already, and so it's only 3 slots that we need to talk about here. Chonsu picking up Kazakus for a 10 drop, you'd have to imagine, is maybe his one hope.
Yeah, stealth, I think, was what I was looking at there. These are not great, though. Like, +4/+4, I really don't think you can expect your board to survive. But the rest just do nothing.
Stealth copy was the one he was hoping to hit. Of course, we can see these double soul mirrors for High 3 have something to say about that. But from Chonsu's perspective, he might have been thrown a bone here in what has been a very one-sided matchup for the past, like, since turn 1, basically.
Yeah. And obviously the Soul Mirror getting the proc there just does not really matter at all. It's just a very clean way to clear the board. He can even heal twice for 1 billion off of the Runway Blackwing, as well as he'll heal for 22 on this turn, if you can believe it.
That's pretty impressive. It is, however, still a stealth golem, so somewhat problematic for High 3. Nah,
Survives.
it's really not.
Survives at 1 health against the Blackwing. Like, there's so many things that kill there. You just need 1 damage of AoE. But, I mean, like you say, what else is there, really?
Chonsu's just dying. I was thinking his 1 out is consecutive golem into N'Zoth, and High 3 did just use one of the soul mirrors, so maybe the N'Zoth sticks around, but it's just not getting there. High 3 simply goes face with this, waves of apathy, and then he's won the very next turn.
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't even have to go for the soul mirror, does he? To clear off, he can just hold on to that if he likes.
I like Mage Scribe Wave here. I think it wins just a little bit harder than the Soul Mirror. That's why.
I must consider.
Sure, can fit in the Scoundrel, spend your mana, develop more pressure. Chonsu has literally no answers.
I think you pick Galloping Savior here, right? It does nothing for you, but it does nothing for your opponent, most importantly, and you've played a 2-mana 5/5.
Sure. Like one less thing that can come off the sword as well.
Yeah, true.
Magic is not a
That means if Chonsu doesn't draw Oh My Yogg, that's what's guaranteed to come off the sword, but it really does not matter.
From Superior Golem to Weenie Golem in 1 turn. Priest truly embarrasses you.
It is the size of a lesser golem now, but without the cute card art. The worst of both worlds.
peace.
Yep.
He's just procking High 3's galloping. That's so funny.
Yeah, there we go. Chonsu throwing it down. And what a win for High 3. What a result overall for what this means. And even if we don't get the biggest reaction from him, I promise you, this means the absolute world to him. Such a breath of relief there. Because he was looking very, very likely to be relegated again if he didn't get a good result this week. Through to the semi-finals now. Guaranteed at least 3 points for the week. Very possibly 4 or 5 if he can get second or first. It's absolutely monstrous for his chances of staying in.
It's huge, and as much as I was ragging on this build of Priest, it just did not look close in either of these games that it won versus the Mage and the Paladin. The lack of Sethic, I thought would hurt the Priest overall, but there's still just a lot of value as it turns out. But to be fair, Chonsu did not have the best of draws here, and pretty much any build of Priest should be favored heavily against this Paladin, which even if Chonsu had drawn the N'Zoth like 6 turns earlier,